to the Stuck in the Middle podcast, the podcast dedicated to the music, movies, and culture of Generation X.
All right, what is up, slackers? Welcome to another episode of the Stuck in the Middle podcast. I'm being joined once again this week by Carlos Rivera, and we are doing something that I have been talking about since the beginning of the podcast. This is the first ever record rumble. And who are the two competitors in this battle? Well, it's the same band, but some people will say it's not the same band. We are talking about Van Halen and, of course, 1984, released in 1984, and 5150, the first album with Sammy Hagar in 1986. Given the life cycle of records, it's usually record release, tour, then you go back into the studio. The fact that they not only lose their lead singer, but get a new lead singer, an album recorded and released and out in just 2 years' time is amazing. So, Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back, man. Looking forward to this. I'm just to like say it now. Neither one of these albums is my favorite Van Halen album. So there's that. Secondly, I'm really disappointed. I thought you'd really want to do a record rumble between Van Halen 3 and A Different Kind of Truth. Wouldn't that be a lot more interesting? No, I'm just joking around.
Oh, it would be something. I'll tell you that. That would be just really interesting. So the last two records is what you're saying. That would be an interesting juxtaposition. But I think what's so interesting about this matchup is that when people talk about, oh, they're like a different band, they're not. They're really not. And when you listen to the tracks musically, like the musicality of it, the only difference is the guy singing. I mean, it really is the only difference. And there's so many little. So a quick background about Eddie Van Halen. So he was not the prototypical guitar player that we're so used to, being rooted in blues guitar.
Yeah. Right.
So you have all of your Tony Iommi's and your Jimmy Page's, your Jeff Beck's, Eric Clapton. All these guys are blues based, but Eddie was classically based. So he came to some of these things very differently. So he has a completely different tonality. And what's curious is that when Sammy joins the band, he's also a guitar player and a blues based guitar player, and what that does for the dynamic. So
absolutely,
what we have are two records that each have 9 tracks.
Yeah, I saw that too.
However, you know, it's hard to look at the first track, and we'll go track by track, but 1984 only clocks in at like 30 minutes.
Yep. It's like 32 minutes or something like that. Yeah, it's really, really short. When I looked at it this week, because I listened to both albums a couple of times, and yeah, I was surprised. Both albums are not very long at all. I mean, 5150 is longer by, I think, like 9 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, like one longer song. And it's really that opening track, I think, is the main difference.
Yep. And it doesn't have an instrumental, where 1984, the first track is an instrumental. In my mind, each album really just has 8 tracks, because you could throw away the intro of 1984. And then for me, I don't really listen to the last track on 5150. I think it's awful.
Okay, so we're gonna get there, because I'm gonna tell you. So it's I've said it a million times on the podcast so far, is that I came to accept Sammy Hagar sometime in the last decade, so about 30 years later than when he first joined the band. I was one of those people who's like, it's a different band, and they're like a keyboard band, and David Lee Roth is David Lee Roth, and he rules, and Sammy's a I Can't Drive 55 guy, right? I was that guy, right? So I haven't listened to this regularly, except for the hits, right? Because the hits on 5150 are amazing. Let's not even try to pretend they're amazing. And it's over the couple of the deep tracks. But inside, and we'll get to it, my comments that I wrote down here, WTF.
Yeah.
Because it's such an odd thing. So this is what we're going to do. So each song is head-to-head combat. That's what it comes down to. They're each facing each other in a death match. And we have to score it, Carlos. So I have my handy sheet here where I'm going to be going through, and whichever song wins, I'm going to put a little checkbox there. And I'm curious to see if my instincts about it are accurate when you really go through it and talk about it. Because I think that in the course of conversation, each one of us could be swayed one way or another. You know what? I never thought about that, right? Oh, you know what? I changed my vote. That's going to be X. So it's track by track, which is where 9 tracks each. They're going to go head to head. So let's kick it off. Track number 1 on 1984 is an instrumental. It is a 1 minute, 7 second long instrumental that could have easily have been an instrumental opening track to 5150.
Yes,
I agree. It could have easily been an intro to a song like Dreams.
Yeah.
It has that same vibe, that same feeling, but you can't really rate the song itself. I mean, do you have anything to add to the song 1984, this quick little synth instrumental?
I mean, it's not something that I dislike. It's dreamy, like you said, like it could be an intro to Dreams on 5150. It's mellow, but it really, I always look at it as the intro to the song 1980, to the song Jump. You know, that's how I always kind of looked at it as, even when I was younger. So there's nothing wrong with it, but it really could be omitted from the album, and you could just start the album with the first song. You
Absolutely.
know, and I think the album would be fine. I don't think anyone would really miss it. I've never heard a cover of 1984.
No, and I've never heard anyone say, you know, my favorite song is 1984. 1984. This is the best song, man. So right off the gate, so here I am telling you that I was a David Lee Roth guy. Track number 1 on 5150. Now, I can't say this is my favorite song on the record, but if you're going to talk about an opening track and the first time you hear Sammy Hagar in Van Halen, he opens up with a very David Lee Roth, hello, baby, in a song about cunnilingus. This is how this guy kicks off his whole I am now the lead singer of Van Halen. I mean, what a way to open a record and make a statement that says, I'm here, I'm the guy, check out what I have. I mean, it's kind of just for that alone, kind of a badass track.
It is. And it does kind of follow in David Lee Roth's, footsteps. If you think about it, like you could totally, like I could see David Lee Roth having sung that song, in his way, because that's the thing. In my mind, Sammy had and I could be wrong because I'm not a vocalist. I've never been a vocalist, but from what I hear, he seemed to have a wider range than David Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth has a wider range.
Really?
Yeah, his octave range. So only reason I know this is because of Mike Patton. So I was looking up what his octave range is, which is like ridiculous, right? So there's all these subjective ideas about what makes a great lead singer. But then there's kind of what is the objective viewpoint of what makes a great singer, just physically, right? So I think that Mike Patton has a higher, longer octave range than anyone. And I think number 2 is Axl Rose, if I'm remembering correctly. And somewhere like 3 or 4 is David Lee Roth. Now, the reason being all those crazy squeals that he does.
Okay. Yeah.
So all of those it's a vocal technique, but it counts because he hits these crazy high notes. And back then he did it so effortlessly. So that's why. But to your point about Sammy, he is belting, full diaphragm, a lot of throat though. I'm surprised he never blew out his voice, to be honest with you. But man, the guy can rip.
Oh,
the guy can absolutely rip.
he still can. I mean, it's surprising. I've seen some recent stuff that he's done with, you know, when Eddie Van Halen died a couple of years ago, him and uh, Michael Anthony, and then a couple of other musicians. They did like a tribute to him, but you know, he's in his he's what 73, 73 years old, something like that, and he could still wail, man. I mean, he's
absolutely.
You know, he's definitely kept his pipes in shape and kept himself in shape, because the same with Michael Anthony, man. Like, you know, and we'll get to that too. Like I have
absolutely,
you know, and so we can talk about that. But yeah, I think Good Enough is a great opening track. I think it's full on Sammy Hagar, you know, but then just it's Van Halen. Van Halen, you know, Eddie's guitar work in 5150, you know, kind of, if not matches, kind of supersedes his guitar work in 1984 in my mind, you know.
absolutely.
I think more because in 1984, in that time, he really was experimenting with the synthesizer stuff.
Definitely.
And you know, David Lee Roth didn't really like that, correct? Is that he didn't like that the direction that was going in, but I think it worked well based on the time. You know, they had avoided all that type of stuff in the obviously in the 70s and then the early 80s, but it just worked. You know, it was working. You know,
yeah, David Lee Roth didn't like it. He didn't feel that it had the machismo, right? So that, I mean, that's his whole shtick, really. I mean, man's man who, you know, dresses in spandex and does all kind of crazy things. He didn't like the direction. And what's curious is that one of my favorite songs that we'll get to of all of Van Halen's catalog is a David Lee Roth heavily synthesizer song that is not the one you might think. So, head to head, Carlos, I'm going to start the voting here. I can't believe this. 5150 gets the first vote for me. Good Enough wins in this head-to-head combat.
All right. I'll have to. Now, are we giving a grade between like 1 to 10 as to, or are we just giving it with just a check mark as to that song won the battle? Just a check mark?
That's right. Yep.
All right. So I agree with you. I think Good Enough is the winner in head to head of those two.
I mean, it's almost not fair.
It really isn't. I mean, because David Lee Roth wasn't given a chance.
He really wasn't.
I mean, and every song on 5150, Sammy's there. And in 1984, you have one song where David Lee Roth, the rest of the band isn't even a part of it.
Well,
I don't even remember. I don't, to be honest, I don't even remember if they must have played that. Like that must have played before they came out on stage when I saw them in Puerto Rico on that tour. It had to have.
Oh yeah, you know? I would imagine so.
So because it's something that was pre-recorded. So all right, 5150 is in the lead.
You know, I could have messed with anything that I wanted to as far as order, and believe me, I considered exactly what you suggested at the beginning, the 1984 versus Inside, but we're going track by track.
Yeah, we have to.
So number 2, Carlos, why don't you kick it off? We are talking about the only number 1 single in Van Halen's catalog, and that is, of course, Jump.
Yeah, that song, when that came out in 1984, that would be 10 years old. So we're in what? Third grade? Yeah, third grade.
Yeah.
Third grade?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So obviously living in Puerto Rico, and that was just, you know, MTV was so big at that time too. So all that, you know, the majority of the hits that were on the 1984 album were on MTV, and it was a cool video. It's a cool, you know, synthesizer riff, I guess you could say. I don't know, you know, it's got a great intro. You know, it's such an iconic intro that hasn't grown old. You know, it just hasn't lost its luster in the you know, the 38 years that's been around. And it's just, that's one of those songs that's on the radio. You would think, you know, there's a lot of bands that have hits where I'm just like, if I listen to the radio for whatever reason, like if I'm not in my car or whatever, I don't turn it off. I listen to it, and it's you hear the song at sporting events. It's just a fun song,
It's a fun
and
song.
it's really fun. And you were talking about like that song kind of reminds me of summer. It's like it reminds me of summer because it came out when I lived in Puerto Rico and it's summer
Yeah.
all year there.
Not fair, man. Not fair.
But and Eddie shows some great guitar work in it. Obviously, when I was younger, I was looking at Eddie Van Halen as just a cool guy. I wasn't looking at the intricacies of his guitar work, but he has some really awesome riffs. And that's the thing. I've heard that song live done with David Lee Roth back in that time, and I've also seen it done with Sammy Hagar, because Sammy Hagar was able to play some of the guitar parts, which allowed Eddie to play the synthesizer.
Absolutely.
Play the and that's one thing that Van Hagar kind of had, which Van Halen with David Lee Roth didn't have. David Lee Roth was a performer. He was like a front man performer that didn't play any instruments. With
just
the band.
harmonica, just harmonica.
Yeah,
that's all he played, and maybe a tambourine. But what's interesting is that
I think he
can
play. He can play guitar, though. I'm pretty sure in his solo stuff, he's come up guitar and piano. I'm pretty sure he can play. So if you're, but just not on stage. He is the quintessential front man.
Absolutely,
he's Jim Dandy. He's been
Yes.
compared to Jim Dandy a lot in his stage presence, in the blonde locks. And I'm not a big Black Oak, Arkansas fan. I can appreciate him, but he was compared a lot in the early stages of his career as being a mock Jim Dandy ripoff by people who didn't like him. And that never bothered me.
and I think that'll come up a little bit later too. So to your point about Sammy, and we'll get back to him in a moment, but Eddie Van Halen is such a killer rhythm guitar player.
Oh, if you listen to his song,
to do all of it. So in situations like those songs where he wanted to delve into other things, having that second guitar player, particularly a competent guitar player, like Sammy's a real guitar player. He just chooses not to typically be the lead guy, because he's more comfortable singing, playing rhythm, much easier to do, right? But you hit the nail on the head. So Jump is iconic, like period. It's an evergreen song. It is absolutely iconic. And gosh, you want to talk about what maybe should have been the opening track for the record. You could have started with that dun, dun, right off the top of the record, and it would have been perfect. So why the instrumental interlude? I have no idea. But Jump, that call, hey you, who said that? I mean, it's also quintessential David Lee Roth.
Yep.
Just quintessential David Lee Roth. But, there's another episode that I'm going to be doing shortly that talks about replacement singers, because I
saw that. Yep.
Right. I want to have you doing that too. So guys, just a little bit of a spoiler. I'm going to try to get Carlos and Justin both together to talk about replacement lead singers, because I think it's so important when singers are confident enough in their own ability to do other people's material. So
and there's and there's two. We won't mention them. Well, obviously Van Halen is one of them. But in my mind, if I think real quickly, there's two that I can think of that have had unbelievable success. Sold some of the albums sold better. I'm not going to say the other one. I think most people could figure it out. But and again, with both bands, I have my favorite version. But I appreciate both versions. There's
of course you're talking about Black Flag.
That had like four vocalists. Yeah. Well,
a couple iconic guys.
Oh yeah, the listeners will have to tune in later. But there's quite a few that we can discuss. But
so this is a little bit heartbreaking for me. So number 2 on 5150. The song that is going head to head with frickin' Jump. Why can't this be love? I wish that this song
wasn't
anywhere else. Anywhere else, because this is, it's not iconic in the same way, but it's perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Why Can't This Be Love is a perfect song. And I know that Sammy takes such heat for, I didn't know what this was called. It's called tautology. So tautology is when you say the same thing twice. And and people go ahead and they kind of piss on the line. But depending on whether you consider it poetic or unintentionally humorous, I'm sorry, but only time will tell if we stand the test of time. I think it's clever. I think it's funny. I think it's awesome. And he gets such heat for it. But Why Can't This Be Love is such a good song. And I'm not sure it's my favorite song on the record, but it's probably pretty close. I mean, it might be.
Wow.
It's a damn perfect song. It's so freaking good. I mean, it's untouchable if it wasn't up against Jump.
Yeah, there's no question. It's trying to think. It's probably not even like my third favorite song on the album. I mean, it's again with the great synthesizer, and it's a different sound than the synthesizer sounds on 1984. It's like it sounds thicker, if that makes any sense, or lower, darker. It's not as bright as like Jump or some of the other 1984 or some of the other synthesizer songs on the 1984 album. And that's one thing on 5150. It's Eddie doing the synthesizer stuff, but kind of evolving. It's not the same thing. It doesn't sound the same as on 1984. And kudos to him, because if we can go back to, well, we're talking about Jump. An interesting fun fact that most Van Halen fans know anyways. But at the end of Jump, the riff that Eddie's playing is the riff, like, it's more of a power chord riff that he's playing, a dun, 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 like a chugga type.
Yeah.
It's the same riff that he's playing on Top of the World on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. But on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, he's playing that riff on two strings. So you can go back and listen to the end of Jump. And it's an idea that he used back then that he used in another song, and it worked, But so there's a little Van Halen fun fact for people who don't listen to Van Halen as much as others.
He actually does that a lot, though, and it's not so dissimilar to like the Beatles, for example. They have all these little reprises, right, as they're going through their records, and even later records, they'll be referencing something 2 albums earlier, just these little flourishes. And Eddie does that a lot. And there's actually a song on 1984 that to me structurally is almost identical to a song on 5150. So, we'll kind of get to that. But so Carlos, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Track 2 versus track 2.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. I mean, it's Jump. Because, like I said, like, and you're gonna look at me cross-eyed, but Why Can't This Be Love? Sometimes it's one of those songs where I'm just like, let me
really.
Even when I'm listening to the 5150 album, I like the song, but it's not even like my third favorite song on the album.
Interesting.
And here's the thing too, is there's a pattern here with, in my mind, Sammy Hagar wrote better songs about love than David Lee Roth. Although there are, like, I think the best song about love, probably, and for me, one of my favorite Van Halen songs about love is Ain't Talking About Love. Like, but if you look at the albums, Van Halen recorded more albums with David Lee Roth than they did with Sammy Hagar. But Sammy Hagar wrote more songs. They wrote more songs about love that I like better. You know, I mean, in total, the totality. There's at least 2 songs on 5150 that are about love or love
Yes,
songs. You know,
absolutely.
so
Well, that's like David Lee Roth on Rogan, right? And he's like,
yeah,
so Rogan's like, so what's the difference between you and Sammy? And Dave's all being Dave. He's like, well, it's simple, Joe, right? He's like, Sammy likes to write about love, but me
yep,
ain't talking about love. You hear
about
me?
love.
Right?
Yep.
And it's just like that. That is true. However, there's a song that's going to be coming up on 1984.
Yep.
It's very much a love song. All right. So now we're going to go to number 3, and that is Panama versus Get Up. Now
this is tough. They're both. I mean, I think they did this purposefully. The band did. I mean, at least I don't know if the same guys. I know, who was it? Ted Templeton produced a lot of Van Halen's earlier work. I don't know if he was the one who produced the stuff with Sammy Hagar, but I think
he didn't.
All right, but as a band, I'm pretty sure at least Alex and Eddie were just like, all right, because they're both. It's song number 3, and they're both like heavy, powerful mashers. Like Get Up is probably the heaviest song on 5150.
Yeah, I would agree.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's interesting you brought up Templeman, though, Ted Templeman, because one of the things that I did think about Get Up, Carlos, is that it's a very muddy mix. So this was them doing it at the 5150 studio, and they had a couple other people with them, but they considered this a relatively self-produced record. It's a really muddy mix on that song, which I think is actually a notch against it because it doesn't have that smooth, slick production. Like the 2 records from a production value standpoint, 1984 sounds fantastic.
Yes. Yep. And it's why albums like the Sammy Hagar albums, they finally got remastered and stuff. But when they were remastering the Van Halen albums, all the David Lee Roth stuff was were the first ones remastered. Granted, they were the older ones, but I just remember that the sound quality of 1984 when I listened, because I listened to them on iTunes. I have the CDs also somewhere, but I've had the vehicle I have now has a CD player because it's an older vehicle. But the truck I had before, the day after I brought it home, I realized there was no CD player. I was like, oh man, that's just no bueno. So I stream. And when I'm at work, I listen to my stuff on iTunes and on Spotify and stuff. But you can tell that the sound quality of the production of 1984 is a lot of a higher quality than 5150.
What's curious is that this was Ted's last recording with them. However, in 1984, he also produced the VOA record by Sammy Hagar. So in 1984, he recorded both of them. And of course, the big hit out of that is I Can't Drive 55. And that, again, has great production value. And then he went on to keep recording with Dave while they went off and kind of did their own thing. But Panama versus Get Up, and I mean, Panama is just one of those sleazy David Lee Roth, just, I mean, it's just it's a sweaty song. You talk about summer, right? Panama, that's a summer song, reach between my legs. It's just that whole vibe is just David Lee Roth at his most raunchy, but it's such a driving riff. It's again, you're right. It's like 2 heavy songs that it's so good and also kind of iconic. See, that's the whole thing. It is an iconic riff. And is it because it was the last record with Dave that it has this kind of mythical status? Or is it simply that the songs were so good in a time where they were actually kind of cutting through a lot of the other stuff that was going on by, again, introducing the synthesizers? They really had some different stuff on that record. But Panama, I mean, it's just it's a scene stealer. It really is just an absolute gem on the record.
And another cool video, another great video that the jump video was cool, but there was no, like those were the first two videos off the album, the first two singles. And those videos have no storyline. It's just basically them up on a stage, jump.
What they do.
And I think they might be on the same stage. It looks like it's the same lighting and everything if you look at the videos. But it's Panama's a lot goofier because you have like, David Lee Roth is doing this thing with the little twirler. You have I don't know, I think is it Eddie Van Halen that's like hanging. He's got the hat with the two, which those were the hats that all the guys had in the 80s. Those like the it was like a painter's cap with with two kite things on the back.
And
80s
Dave
style,
is like
man.
Suspended before Bon Jovi was. He's flying around the stage. I mean, crazy stuff. That was a visual spectacle because they were at like the height of their powers, which is crazy given at that point, they've been around since what, 76?
70, yeah. I mean, their first album came out in what, 78. So they were doing all the like, legendary backyard parties in California and everything. I mean, it's they definitely. But I think what getting back to what you were saying is it an iconic riff or is it just? I think it is, and it's. I don't think it's so much that it's David Lee Roth's last album. It's just Eddie Van Halen doing his thing. It's because you play. I'm sure if you play that riff to most people, our age, who doesn't necessarily listen to a lot of rock music, they'll most likely, I'd say more than 50% would know what song that is. And that's saying a lot, that's, at least they'll know. They might not know that's Panama, say that's Van Halen.
Yes.
Now
I don't feel the same way about Get Up.
No. As a Van Halen fan and as a music fan, I think the guitar work in Get Up is a little bit more complex than in Panama.
Yeah.
Just because it kind of goes all over the place. It has the beginning of and he's doing like the dive bombs and stuff, and then all of a sudden drum kicks in and there's like wow, and it's just like, and then Sammy coming in at the wow. I think Eddie's doing more guitar wise than he is in Panama, but I think Panama in its simplicity kind of works better.
Interesting.
I think it works better. And it's not that it's not a the guitar work when he's doing the soloing is pretty nasty. He's doing all that. He's doing all the finger tapping and stuff. But I think it's he's just kind of in Get Up. He's kind of going more all over the place.
Yeah, I would agree. I just wish that mix was better. I just wish that mix. It sounds.
It's. I don't know if you've ever seen the Live Without a Net concert.
I haven't. I've never seen it.
That's the show that I went to, and it's interesting because they came out to the first song that they play is not a Van Halen song.
Really?
Yeah, it's David Lee Roth's song.
They come out to Panama?
Nope. Or no, not a David Lee Roth song. Sorry, it's a Sammy Hagar song.
So they started with the Sammy song. They did right out the gate.
Yeah.
Oh,
really? They come out to the song they come out to is "There's Only One Way to Rock."
What a great opening tune!
It is. So there you have. And so I have it. I have it on DVD, and it's like Dolby sound. So it's sick. I have it. Like I play it. My wife hates it because usually like I'll get home on a Friday night. And, since I don't have to work the next, it's like midnight after I'm done unwinding, I'll put that in sometimes. Like the two concert videos that I put in are that and like there's a Who, I think The Kids Are All Right DVD. Yeah. That just live concert stuff and footage from around the years. But that Van Halen one is sick. And it's at, Eddie and Sammy playing guitar together.
Right.
But yeah, that's what they come out to. It's, but yeah, what I was getting at with that is the the mix on that concert video is. I used to have that on VHS, so obviously the mix wasn't very good, but the remastered stuff on Blu-ray and on DVD is so much better. It sounds better than the album.
All right, I'll check it out. So head to head, Panama versus Get Up. I gotta say Panama.
I have to agree with you. I think it's not even close.
Oh, it's just, it's a good song. I mean, it really is, and it's like none of it's bad, except for the one song maybe.
But that's the thing. I think it's kind of guilty of just being up against a song like you said. Why Can't This Be Love is up against Jump, and then you have Get Up, which I think is a bet in my mind. I think that song's better than Good Enough, but Good Enough is up against an instrumental, and Get Up is against one of the most iconic Van Halen songs ever, if you think about it.
It's all location, man.
Yeah, location.
So next we have at number 4, Top Jimmy from 1984 versus Dreams on 5150. Now you mentioned Jim Dandy. So this Top Jimmy's got to be about Jim Dandy.
Yeah.
Because, he sang so good, the roof came down and he didn't stop the show. I mean, it's got to be, but the whole opening of that, Eddie's doing all these little, harmonics and just kicking ass like right out of the gate. But what a weird song.
It is very, the fact that it comes after like such a ripper, like Panama, but Top Jimmy is one of my favorite songs off that album.
Top Jimmy cooks.
I mean, it's Top Jimmy swings. He's got the looks, because that's the thing. I mean, that album 1984 has like the songs are so different. I mean, it's really, it works, but it's just it's so different, and I don't know do you think that might be another reason why David Lee Roth was like, I don't like the direction that this is going in, because in other Van Halen albums, there's kind of a symmetry to the songs.
Yeah.
One after another. This album, and also like Diver Down, the album before this, really is kind of all over the place too. Because they do a couple covers and
right.
It's in its own, it's a great album too. I was listening a couple of weeks ago, but this one just kind of, there's no symmetry to it. You
it's
start
eclectic.
off with the sense. Yeah, it really is
purposely eclectic.
Yeah,
because Eddie is experimenting. Yeah, and he's trying to figure out what is the next stage, because it also seems as though he was influenced by popular culture while being someone who drove popular culture. Yep. And it's like, okay, what's the next thing? He really likes synthesizers. Now, I've never heard this as a quote from Eddie, but I can't imagine him having not listened to a couple of those early 80s Journey records and been like,
oh, there's pictures. Yeah, there's pictures of him and like Neil Schon together. Like there's quite a few back in like the late 70s, early 80s.
Because you can have heavy driving music with synthesizer either in the background or even being the primary instrument. And he was like, I want to explore that. And I'm sure some of that was just by virtue of being classically trained, because he sat down and it was piano, and I think that was it Alex that was like clarinet, or do I have these backwards? But they didn't start on the instruments that they became known for.
Nope. And actually, fun fact on was Big Bad Willie, Sweet William Now, their father played the clarinet part in that song on Diver Down.
That's right.
Because their dad was Van Halen. Their dad was a musician. And I think this was, when did the Thriller album come out? Was that 1984 too?
Yeah, it's the only thing that kept them out of the top spot, I think.
Okay, and that, so I think Eddie was definitely influenced by pop culture, because he played a guitar solo there, and I think working with Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson, of course he was I'm pretty sure he went into that studio and was like, "Holy cow, man! Like, look at all the stuff you have to work with. You can go different places with this." I think he definitely had to have been inspired by that. You know, I mean,
if you're orchestral minded, all the things that are available in the studio should be at your disposal.
Yep.
It becomes symphonic. And I mean, I think that's what he was intrigued by, because the great synth sound, it sounds like you have a whole bunch of strings or horns or wherever you want them to be to fill out the sound. It seems to me that it was such a logical progression, as much as David Lee Roth was like, no, we're a bass, drum, guitar, vocal. Like, yep. We are a traditional rock band, which is ultimately what Roth did. I don't remember, maybe there was a touring keyboard player, but that certainly wasn't part of the main core band. That person was in the background at best. So it's just so interesting, because Top Jimmy, it's a rocker, but it's such a weird song. So this is where it gets interesting, because you just said that Top Jimmy is one of your favorite songs off of 1984, but this is up against Dreams.
Yep.
Now, to me, Dreams, again, you're talking about love and positive and uplifting, and you didn't get that usually with Roth.
No, it was straight up party rock. They were a party band, you know?
And so it could be positive, rock and roll, positive, but not affirmative. You know what I mean? It wasn't an affirmation. It wasn't something, it's like celebration of life. It's celebrating sleaze and the downside, the dark side, right? It's like, yeah, it's a party, but bear in mind, something might happen in the dark corners, right?
Yeah. There was always, I don't know if you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I have.
The implication, Dennis with the implication is, what are you implying? What's going to happen to those girls? There's always that implication with David Lee Roth.
There is always that implication. Whereas a song like Dreams, and that's what dreams are made of. But the whole thing is, I want to say this. You're talking about Sammy as a singer. Holy shit. On Dreams, and Baby Drive, I can't even pretend to do that note. I mean, he's soaring. You know, Dreams, right? He's soaring at that point. That's on my gym playlist.
Yeah.
Because it's oh my gosh. And when he does it, it's so reminiscent, where you have these guys that have been around at this point for decades, right? That are actually just hitting their peak in this era. I'm gonna say, 80s Paul Stanley was hitting the super high register stuff effortlessly, right? Same thing with Sammy. I mean, and he came in at the band at the perfect time of his career.
Yep.
He was always a belter, but now he had this backdrop. And I've never heard him sing so freaking sublimely than on Dreams. And if nothing else, so again, Sammy detractor, admittedly, what was I missing? This. I was missing what he was doing vocally and how powerful it was. Dreams is, as the kids would say, a banger.
Yep. And like you said, you can hear the throatiness in his when he's hitting those high notes. And it's kind of like, well, I don't know. Yeah, was the last album? Was the last album he did by himself the one that was it Give to Live? That album,
or the album that had that? I thought VOA was the last one,
because there's that song Give to Live. He has he's hitting those high notes with the throatiness. When he's like, if you want love. I mean, I can't get those notes, but it's kind of similar to the notes he's hitting on Dreams. I like the Dreams song. Again, it's one of those also, which was the cool video with the Blue Angels.
Oh,
I think that was that. I think that must have been the first video. Was that the first single off that album? I think it was.
Was Dreams first?
Or was
Why Can't This Be Love was first?
No, maybe Why Can't Be Love was first, yeah. But I think the first video that they made was the Dreams video. And I don't even think is the band even in the video, or is it just footage of the Blue Angels? Yeah.
I mean, it's just so ridiculously good. Let's see the track. So the singles. Why Can't This Be Love was released February 26, 1986, followed by Dreams in May. Love Walks in July, and Best of Both Worlds in November.
So see, the first three singles were about love and positivity.
Love and positivity. Absolutely.
Not raunchy rock and roll, where the first three singles off of 1984 were, well, the first one was kind of a fun, the first single, Jump, was a fun, but Panama is raunchy, and then the third single, which we haven't mentioned yet, is raunchy as all hell too.
Absolutely. So a little bit of a juxtaposition. So let's not forget track one. Good enough.
Yes. What the first track is raunchy, but it was not released as a single.
Was not. And then like the rest of the record is nice. Hey, look, it's a new, softer Van Halen, except still rocking. So head to head, we have Top Jimmy versus Dreams. What do you got, Carlos?
So for me, this one, again, it's easy for me to make this decision, but it is Top Jimmy over Dreams.
And this is where we have a divergence for the first time on the podcast. I have to give it up to Dreams. Just for that vocal performance alone.
Wow, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
As of right now, I'm the one with 2 in the 5150 column. And to your earlier question about, hey, have you heard that song by Sammy? I've listened to no solo Sammy.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still trying to fully embrace 5150 before
not
I
even
move
you
on
were not a, you,
to
you
OU 812 or
you were not a fan of the Red Rocker when before Van Halen. Wow. Yeah, I mean
that made me hate him even more. It was just like, what is this guy? Come on. To his credit, he finally grew his hair wicked long, and that was a little better. All right. So number five, we have Drop Dead Legs versus Summer Nights.
Yeah.
You want to kick us off on this one?
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, again, two songs that start off with really cool riffs. I mean, Summer Nights, like you were saying in your last episode, it has that riff that it reminds you of summer. But then Drop Dead Legs, again, you go from this really the Top Jimmy, if you listen to the guitar work on it, it's like really it's really like tight and really like, it's a bright sounding guitar sound, where Drop Dead Legs has a really like it's a different riff, but again, it's one of those riffs that it's like, damn, it's just so good, it's just so good. And then it comes in with one of David Lee Roth's, trademark kind of yelps or whatever.
Yep.
And then Summer Nights, with that little intricate it just kind of stops, and then Sammy does his
Yep.
So it's just, I'm telling you, man, I think the band did this on purpose. It's like we had, it really is. And I kind of I was thinking about that when I listened to, because I'd listened to 1984 first, then 5150 like 3 times this week. I was like, oh man, it's just eerie. It really is. But then after Sammy comes in with that, that nasty riff, that I mean, I love both songs. This one's a hard one. I love both songs, but yeah, I mean, they're both two killer songs on each album.
So it's interesting, the riff work. So I'm just curious if you hear this the same way or can see what I'm getting at. that opening riff, the riff for Drop Dead Legs, is awfully reminiscent of a slower tempo Best of Both Worlds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So like you can see how there's this reminiscent sound, right? So when I was one of these crazy people who was like, it's a completely different band. No, dude, it's really not. It's not. That riff is so similar. It's so similar in structure. And on both songs, you know, we haven't said it enough. I think we only mentioned it once so far. The MVP on both songs is Michael Anthony.
Oh, his harmonizing is ridiculous.
Wow. So
you couldn't hear his bass work a lot on those early Van Halen albums because it was just so drowned out. But man, can that man can harmonize with both lead singers, and we'll get to that later because I have my thoughts on that. But you know, it just he's got a wail of his own. You know, I mean, he's got such a high pitched wail. You know, that you heard on like songs like Ain't Talking About Love. And, you know, I mean, on 5150, you hear it a lot. You hear it a lot on Summer Nights. That song, you really hear. So that's the first song on that album where you really hear Michael Anthony shine with that harmonizing, you know?
Yeah. Well, I just love in Drop Dead Legs that I'm not going to try to do it, but you know that you want it. It's their voices together, but most of that is actually Michael Anthony because a song where it really needs to open up full voice, right? Dave doesn't always commit, even at his best, right? So somebody has to do the heavy lifting, right? And that's not to say Eddie sings background too. He's on every track, you know what I mean? But like that, you know that you want like just the oh my gosh, and then you have that guitar work going on behind it. I mean, this is. Again, it's a very different song than the previous track and the previous track and the previous track. But there's this, as much as it's eclectic, it's very much, it does flow in like a really strange way, given how different the songs are. But I don't need to belabor the point for Summer Nights because I gushed about it, you know, last week's episode. I mean, it's astonishingly good. And this was a song that wasn't released as a single.
Nope.
Was it? And I think that they did a little bit of I think this is the only song. They played this on the concert video, right?
The Live Without a Net,
Yeah. Yep. I think that is the first and only time back then that I ever heard the song. Because again, I wasn't listening to the record. And then I started listening to it. I'm like, that riff is Summertime encapsulated. There's one other song that's like that. It's Stone in Love by Journey.
Yep.
Which
I totally agreed with you when I listened to that episode. I knew that was going to be number one. And it's such a great riff. That's I can't play it obviously like Neil Schon, but it's a riff that's playable. You know, it's not that complicated of a riff, but it's really, really powerful. You know,
it evokes that feeling.
Full. Oh, yeah.
Yes. So the same thing with Summer Nights. And it's just Summer Nights in the radio. I mean, I just think about all the times that we were hanging out when we were younger in the summertime and either blasting music or just being off somewhere, just doing whatever. And man, this song captures it so beautifully. And I can't say enough good things about Summer Nights. And that
I agree.
Backing vocal. Oh, Michael Anthony.
Yep.
So this is a tough battle.
It is a tough battle. I mean, so what's your pick between the two songs then?
I got to go Summer Nights. It's just number 3 for me in the 5150 column. And you agree, Summer Nights?
I agree, yeah, because even like, before, after Eddie's doing the solo work and then he goes back to that riff, then, it's got like a fist pumping element. It was like, where was it? Boom with the drum.
Yes.
Boom, boom. You know, it just has everything. That song, it's very anthemic. You know. So.
So good.
Sammy's growing on you. I'm telling you. You gotta, little baby bites. Baby bites. but I won't, I'm not going to sit there and say it, like I'd understand if you can't warm up to For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. That's an album that's more geared towards Van Halen fans. But give Oh You Ain't One Two a chance, Baby Bites.
I will try. I will try. Is that what you started, what you wanted, started, whatever that song is? Is that
Come on,
there?
finish what you started. Yep. So
it's funny that opening. I've always hated it. I don't know why, because his voice is phenomenal and I love it, but it's just like he sounds constipated. So now talk about old school. So for anyone who doesn't know what I mean, this is when you have to flip the tape or flip the record. So now we're on side 2. And man, both albums come out swinging for side 2. And we have Hot for Teacher versus Best of Both Worlds. Yeah. Strong.
Yeah, very
side
strong.
2. And
very
I will
strong.
say that I kept replaying it in my mind and listening to it literally. And I think, just my opinion, Hot for Teacher might be the definitively absolute encapsulation of Van Halen. That is the most Van Halen song to have ever Van Halened. And it is ridiculous from start to finish. It is everything in one song. It's the crazy Alex drums to kick the song off. It's Eddie going crazy, right? And you got Michael Anthony in there too. He's laying it down. And you have the raunchiest, I think the raunchiest of lyrics on the whole album. It's just dripping David Lee Roth sex. And you have the great harmonies once again with Michael Anthony. I mean, that so bad. I mean, crazy. This Hot for Teacher, given their entire catalog, here you are. They have been together since 1970, whatever. First record, 78. Here you are in 1984. I think that Hot for Teacher is the quintessential Van Halen song. That's my take on track 6, side 2, 1984.
I agree. And it's also, for me, it's also the best video of all time. There is no video. There is no video that's ever been made. Well, Thriller speaks for itself, but I mean, rock and roll video, there's never been a better video made. This song has a story to it, and the video works perfectly. And
Absolutely.
The fact that they got incorporated those kids, it is, like you said, it encapsulates everything that Van Halen was up until that time. Up even with at the end of the video with the hot rod, when David Lee Roth is coming to pick up the kids from school in that hot rod. And that song has been used in movies. That movie Varsity Blues had that one scene with the teacher. And they I'm pretty sure, and they played it like the song was playing in the background.
It's been so many years.
I could be wrong, but yeah, it's it's just a sleazy video. You got the kids smoking. You have the teachers coming out on a stripper pole with beauty contestant banners on them, just whipping off their dresses. And I mean, it's just, I got it bad. I'm hot for teacher, but it's just great with the whole Waldo thing. And, at the end with what they all become with, David Lee Roth becomes a game show host. Alex, Michael goes to Japan and becomes a sumo wrestler. Alex becomes a gynecologist, and then Eddie just loses his marbles and is resting comfortably with Three Oaks, whatever, with his "I Love Me" jacket on, just sitting there watching TV. It's great. It's just great, And Waldo was never heard from again after they show him with a fur coat on, and the women and the Rolls Royce. It's just a great song. It's a great video. Great guitar work by Eddie in the beginning, in the middle, in the end. I mean, he shreds on that song.
Absolutely. I don't feel tardy.
Oh yeah.
You gotta have the rap.
Oh yeah. What do you think the teacher's gonna look like this year? The whoever, I don't know who it is that does it, but the hoo at the end where he's like, class dismissed. I mean, just dirtbag kids, man. That's what they were.
They were.
That's what they were. You have the one kid standing there drooling coming out of his mouth. His hair looked like he just snorted glue or whatever. He looks like the dude from Airplane. I mean,
you can imagine, like, that is the class that you walk into. Can you imagine being David Lee Roth's substitute teacher? I mean, honestly, I can't imagine he was any different when he was 10 than he is now. No. His humor is about the same. So that is up against Best of Both Worlds. So this is, again, a Michael Anthony just killer, just absolute killer. But all I can think about is that video was released with footage from the concert.
Yep.
Yes,
it was.
And it's that killer riff. It's like the they're in step with each other.
They're doing they're doing the whole Genesis. It's like, I can't.
But it's showing the rapport. So even putting aside the song, the rapport between Sammy becoming such a part of the band, right? And they're doing performance, and it's really just a pretty straightforward. It's a pop rock song.
Yep.
And I think it's a great single. I'm not sure how well it charted. I felt it did pretty well. But it's a damn good song. Again, it's in a rough spot from a comparison perspective, but that's just my opinion.
Nope, I agree. I mean, it's a song that if put up against, I mean, see, 1984 just has, those first 5 or 6 songs, except 1984, they're tough to go up against. I mean, and you should know how much I like this song, man. I used a line from the song as my yearbook quote senior year. Just tune into what this place has got to offer, because we may never be here again. I mean, it's just it's an iconic, like you're saying, the in step, and the whole camaraderie behind the band. It looked like they genuinely liked being around each other, even when I had seen them playing. But so did Van Halen when I saw him in 1984. But I didn't have anything to kind of put it up against, because I'd never seen them before. I had seen Van Halen with Sammy Hagar like 2 other times after that, and like the third time I'd seen him, it was different. Like, it looked like it was different. It's not like they were going through the motions, but they didn't have that enthusiasm together that they had when it was first fresh and whatnot. And they also, a lot of it could have been they had a lot of fans that they had to try to win over too. And I think based that, they didn't win all of them over, but they were more successful record selling wise with Sammy Hagar than they were with David Lee Roth. If in terms of, like, again, the first 3 albums with Sammy Hagar, the 5150, OU812, and 4 Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, sold a boatload of records.
Yes.
I think, I don't know if it sold more than 1984, but it definitely had to have sold more than like Diver Down, albums like Fair Warning, Women and Children First. Those are great albums, but I mean, in terms of commercial success, they weren't as big as those first 3 albums with Sammy Hagar.
So, what's interesting is that Sammy himself likes to say that, right? But when you look at overall chart stuff, so he's looking at it from the perspective of right out of the gate, your basic record life cycle, right? So you release it and you're looking at about 2 years. right?
Yeah.
So 2 years, because that's going to encapsulate the tour. But I don't think there's a single Sammy record that's reached diamond certification, right?
No.
So that's like 10 or 12 million, whatever it is.
Well, where 1984 probably hit that, correct? That had to have hit that.
I actually think that Van Halen 1 has hit
the first
that.
one.
Yeah, like since then, not out of the gate, but certainly these albums are so classic that they continue to sell, and they've been on the charts forever. So let's see. We have so Van Halen, the first one is a diamond. Let's see. My phone is acting funky here. Van Halen 2, 5 times platinum. Let's see, what else? 1984 is diamond. So the highest with Sammy is 6 times platinum for 5150.
5150?
Yeah. Yep, so that's their highest selling with Sammy. So I mean, as far as pure units,
one in 1984 is not even close.
Yeah. But we digress. So
sorry, Sammy, I tried, man.
and he does that too. And Dave's like, really? He's not buying it. Plus he has the residual checks to probably prove it. Yet, David Lee Roth has lost more millions than we'll ever see, and it's ridiculous. The guy was an EMT for a few years, for God's sake. So here we have Hot for Teacher versus Best of Both Worlds. What do you got?
It's Hot for Teacher, man.
It's Hot for Teacher.
That's again, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I love the song, but just for the video alone. But it's those are two songs that anytime I hear them played, I listen to them in their entirety. It's not one of those, let's see what else is on.
Right.
Nope.
Right.
I listen to those start to finish. Those songs never get old to me.
Agreed. So the next one is tough for me personally. We have number 7, I'll Wait versus Love Walks In.
2 songs about love.
Why don't you get us started on this one, Carlos?
So it's I'll Wait and Love Comes Walking In.
Yep.
And they both start with synthesizers. Again, I'll Wait has that 1984 bright synthesizer. It's bright. All the synthesizer sounds on that album are bright sounding. There's nothing where Love Comes Walking In isn't the same, where Why Can't This Be Love is more like, it sounds like I'm trying to, Love Comes Walking In sounds like, Eddie's playing keyboard. That's what Love Comes Walking In is. Where Why Can't This Be Love sounds like a synthesizer machine, like a programmed,
I totally get that.
So I don't know if I'm like conveying it where other people can understand that, but you get what I'm saying. That song, Love Comes Walking In, I like more than Why Can't This Be Love. I don't know if it's because I actually learned how to play it a little bit in piano class in Mrs. Skarchuk's piano class at Maloney senior year.
I didn't know you took piano.
Yeah, it's one of those. I took it with Kurt
Electives?
Gannon. Yeah, it was
serious?
an elective. Yeah. I wish
wasn't
I
at
took
school
it more
much,
seriously.
so.
Yeah, I didn't take it very seriously. But it was just a fun class. I wish I had taken it more seriously. Yeah, I mean, again, neither one of them is my favorite song off the album. I do like both songs. I think Love Comes Walking In kind of flows more in the 5150 album. And what I mean by that is because, it's a love song, that kind of it feels like it fits in the album perfectly. Whereas with so many of the songs on 1984, it's kind of like, I mean, for lack of a better word, it's herky jerky. It just doesn't really like, it's like you go from Hot for Teacher to this, you know? I mean, it works, but again, to me, there's no symmetry to it, you know? I mean, it's kind of like, and I think I have to think, has David Lee Roth ever said, does he like that album? Is it one of his least favorite Van Halen albums? Is it one of his favorite Van Halen albums? Has anyone ever asked him that? Because I'd be curious to know. You know, I don't think it would be. I think I think his answer would be like, it's a okay album, but it's not one of my favorite. It's one of my least favorite albums.
See, it's so difficult because he is so competitive. And how many units the record sold, and they became such superstars. And he really parlayed 1984 directly into his solo career.
His solo career, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I think there's an element, but the song in particular, he has an opinion on. So I just want to say this. So I think what you were saying before with the keyboards, the Love Walks In keyboards, it's like default setting.
Yep.
It's like you open up your keyboard and you're just, what's the default setting? And he's just playing it straight. Whereas a song like, Why Can't This Be Love? It's really meant to be the replacement in a way for the guitar, right? It's meant to be the lead instrument. So it has a little bit of a distorted feel. So I think that's what you were trying to say. So I'll Wait is in my top 10 Van Halen songs. I love this song. And what's curious is that you're talking about the sound of the keyboards being bright, but there is a menace to the song. It has a certain kind of sinister undertone to me. Because, of course, if David Lee Roth is going to have a song that's specifically about love, there has to be something wrong with it. Right? So he's looking at this centerfold from afar and kind of obsessed. And I'll Wait Till Your Love Comes Down is kind of a double entendre of taking it down from the poster that he has pinned up. He's saying it straight from the heart. But it's got this almost Every Breath You Take vibe to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the stalking type, creepy stalker.
And that's his love song, right? It's just so apropos for Dave. But there's something about the sound of it. I love the sound of the song. So I've talked about, I think a lot of my favorite Van Halen songs actually have some synthesizer, right? Or have that kind of synthy sound. Because, we've talked about Dance the Night Away. That guitar, it could easily be played on a keyboard.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Right? It has that same vibe to it.
Yep.
So I love I'll Wait. This was co-written, by the way, by Michael McDonald of the Doobie Brothers.
Okay.
Who was the band, the Doobie Brothers, had been recorded. Their producer was Ted Templeman for years and years and years. Dave couldn't figure out how to finish the song. Now he's never for a loss of words his entire life. And he can't figure it out. He's like, I got the song. I can't figure it out. Templeman's like, hey, we'll bring in Michael McDonald. He's a wordsmith. He's a killer from a lyrical perspective. So he comes in, they collaborate. Dave didn't want it on the record. He did not want I'll Wait on the record.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
Eddie was like, this has got to be on the record. Like, this is a great song. So even David Lee Roth in that moment kind of had this sense of, I don't know, maybe it's because he wrote a song that had love in it.
Yeah.
And he just was like, I can't do that. But I think I'll Wait is such a killer song. Now, Love Walks In is literally, and you'd be like, no, it's figurative. No, if you listen to Sammy in interviews, it's actually about aliens. Because
and he has said that before. He's as an intro to the song. He's like, this is a song about aliens.
Yes,
Yes.
Because breaking news for anyone who doesn't know, Sammy Hagar has been abducted by aliens multiple times, and I quote, they downloaded his brain for information, most notably the tequila recipe.
Yeah. But I think he's had a little bit too much cabo wabo with the agave.
Seriously. But he's like, hey, man, there's something alien coming over me. He is literally alluding to romance and aliens. So I'm thinking it's a little bit like Captain Kirk's theme song. So Captain Kirk goes out into space and he finds some green-skinned woman and he falls in love for that episode. And then he goes and he finds some three-eyed woman somewhere. This is Sammy Hagar's Captain Kirk, I Get Freaky with Alien song. And that's all I can think of every time I hear it.
Hey, man, he likes, don't knock an alien unless you've tried it.
I really don't want to be abducted. I really don't. I mean, maybe it's a good time will be had by all, but it usually sounds like it ends badly. But obviously, the aliens are huge fans of Mr. Hagar's work.
Hey, maybe they've added to the record sales, trying to reach out and top Dave. Got a ways to go though, buddy.
Yeah. So the aliens abducted Dave, and they were like, "Whoa, please shut up." No more. Let's send him back to Earth.
Yes. Either that or they heard him on one of his 3.5-hour rants on Joe Rogan the two times he's been on. I've listened to both of them, and they are entertaining. The second one wasn't as entertaining as the first time. Like the first time I was highly entertained. The second one kind of irked me that he didn't bring up Eddie a lot more than he did. He seemed like he was just kissing Alex's rear end more than anything. But it seems like he had a better relationship with Alex, who was basically, I think, the heavy in the decision making compared to Eddie. I mean, there's a great story of Eddie Van Halen overdosing on cocaine when they were younger, and Alex punched him in the face like twice in the car to get him to come to, and it worked. Got him up. Boom,
and he did it in perfect rhythm too.
Oh yeah, maybe that's where he got the Hot for Teacher intro idea.
Smacking his brother around. So if we're gonna put these head to head, Carlos, we have Love Walks In. Excuse me, I'll Wait versus Love Walks In. So what do you have?
I'm gonna go. Love Comes Walking In. I'll give Sammy the advantage because of the aliens.
And I'm going with I'll Wait because I love that freaking song.
It is a good song. It's a complex song too. It reminds me, you're talking about like kind of like the dark menacing. Like I can imagine like David Lee Roth, like if they ever made a video for this, he's like walking in a city street when it's raining and there's like ambulances like driving by or police driving by, kind of like him in a trench coat, kind of like Tom Waits, like grizzled, and just it kind of has that feel to it.
It does. It's just, it has that. Yeah, it's not even sleazy. It's something else. There's such a different vibe to that song from I think just about anything that he's done. I think it kind of is a precursor to a song that he had on a solo record called Sensible Shoes. I think they're kind of analogous in a way. But all right, so now we're getting into deep album cuts. These are definitely deep album cuts. So number 8, Girl Gone Bad versus 5150. Now I'm going to start on here because Girl Gone Bad, you talk about this 1984 being an interesting musical journey. This is a super proggy song.
Yep. He's doing his whittly wine there.
But it also, when it kicks in, like Alex and Michael Anthony are almost locked into that kind of like the Iron Maiden gallop.
Yep.
It's such a it's such an interesting song for them because it is like so prog. It even starts out a little bit with a kind of a Frank Zappa, right?
Yeah.
Little Zappa, and then it's just like this whole other journey, and it's just so curious because in a lot of ways, Dave is out of place on this song.
Yeah.
Now, he sings well on it. He'll always find a way. That's one of the things where, we talked about a song like Get Up earlier. I feel like it was not the best for Sammy, right? Dave has this way of inserting himself into the music that's just, it's a rare talent that he has. And he would have found a way on Get Up. But he's out of place, yet he finds a way to make it work. And Girl Gone Bad as a concept seems like it doesn't fit the music.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it should have been more of a thematic kind of story, because that's normally what you think of with prog rock. And that's the only thing that I think kind of hurts it a little bit. But then you juxtapose that with 5150. Great riff.
It's a straight rocker.
Great riff. And it also has that, Michael Anthony killing it on this, but, always one more, never satisfied. Like that whole piece of the song is so good. I don't know what it means for 5150, because doesn't that mean a call for someone who is having a mental break?
Yeah, it's a clinically insane person. That's the California whatever, not the penal code. It's like the code that they use for when the EMTs and the police are going for to go find someone who's just gone nuts, who's lost their marbles.
That's right.
So it's 5150 time.
So it's like, I'm trying to say, okay, well, what does it have to do with the lyrics? And it's like nothing.
Nope.
Absolutely nothing.
Nope. I think it's just dribble that's just put there to kind of, because this song for me is all about Eddie Van Halen's guitar work, and then the harmonizing, the meet you halfway,
Yeah.
And hitting those high notes, but yeah, I feel like a running politician, still trying to please you all the time, giving myself a new condition, running, it doesn't really make any sense.
It doesn't.
I don't think it has to, though. That's the thing. I mean,
doesn't.
But unlike the song that we're going to talk about next on the album, this one works based on the musical, the musical component of it. The cool, the killer riff, the breakdowns, the guitar soloing. It's all, it's classic Eddie Van Halen. It's just this is my favorite song off the album.
Is it?
Yeah, it is my favorite.
Yeah,
song
5150 is your favorite song.
Yep.
Interesting. And it doesn't have to make sense, but it's all the elements that you want out of a Van Halen song.
Yep. There's just so many times when I was a kid, because just being in my parents' basement down here in Hitchcock Drive, which is where I am now, and just cranking, because I had the cassette tape I had told you, and just cranking it on the boombox and just like lip syncing to it and pretending to be Eddie Van Halen. There was one time, remember, I used to do theater in Middletown, and the afternoon before a show, that performance that we had, I put this on to get pumped up, and I was wearing, I had socks on, and I was jumping around pretending to be Eddie Van Halen, and I slipped. I hit the bookshelf, and I cut my nose like right on the like near the middle of between my eyebrows, and I had a play that I was going to be in, so my mom had to put like this concealer type thing, and it burned so bad because it was like a gash, and you could notice it. And then luckily, I had the theater makeup and stuff, but yeah, that's what that song did to me.
So 5150 gets Carlos too hyped, man.
It gets you too fired hyped up. It still does. I cranked that. My wife goes, turn that down when we're in the car, but I cranked that up. I love it. I love the riff. I love the riff to that song.
So if we're putting these head to head, We're talking Girl Gone Bad versus 5150. You sound like you're all 5150.
I'm all 5150, man.
So I was kind of ambivalent on both songs, to be honest. I love the instrumentation on Girl Gone Bad. I mean, I do. But overall as a song, I think 5150 is stronger. So I'm going to agree with you there. And
you're meeting me half the way.
Yeah, meet you half the way.
Yeah,
and this is not at all political.
No.
So finally, we have the closing tracks.
Which is not even. It's not fair, dude. Not fair. Really, it's as unfair as the first tracks on the two albums. This one, I think, is even more unfair based on the fact that, like I said, man, like I'm not upset that 1984 is on the album. It's the name of the album. Like I'm upset that this last song, like this, I would have been all right with an 8-song album, and I would have probably put it as close, because this song is way too long too. It's like, it's not even funny. Like the stuff they're saying, I don't find it amusing.
Yeah.
It's just long. Yeah, it's just bad. Like I don't know whose bright idea that was. Maybe they were just all drunk or something and just said, just leave it in there for filler. Because
it sounds like they were trying to do a Stevie Wonder kind of maybe even a little like, I don't know, Earth, Wind and Fire. Like they were trying to do Van Halen doing kind of an R&B funk song.
Yep. And they're big fans because they've had Earth, Wind and Fire open for them.
Yeah.
So they did, I think the last tour they did with David Lee Roth, I think Earth, Wind and Fire was one tour opening up for them. So they definitely were, they were definitely fans, but it just didn't work. It just sounded like it could have been like the intro of either a bad sitcom in the 80s or like the, what I'm saying?
It's bad.
It just.
It sounds like it's supposed to be like Superstition. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Except without any of the vibe, like no vibe, no chill on this song.
There's no personality. Yeah, this song has no identity or personality.
It has no identity.
I forgot that was on when I was listening to it for the first time I listened to it this week, because I never listened to that song. But I went through the album. I'm like, oh man, that's right. This song was on there.
Should have called that one 5150.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That one needs some help. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's a WTF moment. So then we have back on 1984, House of Pain.
Yep.
So what do you think? Because I know for me, this sounds like, and it's so weird given that Eddie is a virtuoso of all virtuosos, right?
Yep.
He has influenced generations of guitar players. But this is almost Eddie doing Tony Iommi.
Yeah, I can see that.
It reminds me heavily of that like Supernaut era Black Sabbath. It just seems like such a Tony Iommi riff. But then, House of Pain, again, David Lee Roth being David Lee Roth. Yeah. I'm only going to give you one lyric, everyone. Kind of gives you the vibe that he's going for. You only like it rough. So this
sinister, man. It's just definitely a sinister. Like, don't leave your drink out, ladies. If you're around Diamond Dave, make sure you have your drink on you at all times. Not saying anything, but I'm just saying.
It's dark, man.
It is very dark.
Which is
I don't think David Lee Roth would ever do that, because he's Diamond Dave. He doesn't have to like resort to that. But dude, it's just, man, it's kind of the implications, man. It's all about the implications.
It's the implications. And I mean, Dave has game for days and probably still does.
Yeah.
Just because of who he is. But I'm like listening to it, right? And okay, so everyone, if you haven't heard this song, say you're gonna leave me because I only tie you up I always love you tender, but you only like it rough. Women bound for glory. Why you leaving me again? Gonna pack your bags and leave this house of pain. Like, he wrote this.
Yeah, he could have used that on those 50 Shades of whatever movies. That would have worked perfectly. My wife probably would have loved this song if it was on that,
I mean, great double entendre, bound for glory. Like, I mean, it's good songwriting, and it oddly, it matches the riff. The fact that it's kind of like this Black Sabbath, dirgy kind of riff, it's just such an odd song. So you have this complete weirdo, cuckoo, experimental thing over on 5150, and then you've got this dark AF song over here with Dave being completely gross. That being said, Carlos, House of Pain wins by a landslide.
By a landslide. It's a great song. It's a great riff. When it breaks down in the middle of the song and kind of changes tempo and everything. Yeah. I mean, it's I think, thank goodness that song ended the album, because what was the song before that? Oh, wait. I think that song works better as the last song of or Girl Gone Bad. Yeah, I think that song works better as the last song of the album than if because if you like the beginning of the song, like I could see, couldn't you see like it's not long enough, but couldn't you see like a wrestler coming out to that?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
But it's just not long enough. Like the dude would have to be flying down the aisle to the ring to get.
Yeah, it's like Warrior back in the day. He only needed a minute to get to the ring.
But it's heavy. It's a heavy song, at least when it kind of like mellows out when it gets to the tempo changes and stuff. But and it's a bam, bam. It's got like a little 70s like Hill Street Blues type feel to it. Bam, bam. I'm just using all this, analogies or whatever. But it's
I love it.
Yeah, it's a good song. It's definitely it's funny. One song on each album could be disposable. One on 5150 more so than the other. But all right, let's see. I'm curious. So yes, House of Pain is my choice out of the two songs.
See, what's funny is if we were to drop first and last, right? First and last, which is, I mean, it's let's see. Drop that. That's still gonna win. That didn't win. We drop that. That's still gonna win. I think it would come out essentially the same. Now, what's curious to me is that we have the same score and we have the same record, but two songs flip-flopped, which is so curious to me. Or a couple of songs. So let me make sure I have this right. 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay. So we have 1984 with 5 each versus 5150 with 4 each, 9 songs total. And honestly, if I would have had this conversation with you 10 years ago, it would not be this close. And in fact, there's at least one song that I could have gone either way on very, very easily. Like, let's see, where's our scoring differential? I mean, now it's a tough one. I mean, it seems really pretty legit here. Yeah, I'm looking at all the different scenarios, and 5-4 in favor of 1984. But again, for me as a late to the Sammy, Team Sammy, I'm not quite Team Sammy, but I'm right there. That's remarkably close. And the only really is where we deviated is that you took Top Jimmy and I took Dreams. That was me taking a Sammy. And then I took I'll Wait and you took Love Walks In. And I look back and I'm like, I don't think that I would change anything else. Yeah, man. So the first record rumble we have a slight victory for 1984.
Yep.
But bear in mind that if you look at it from a slightly different perspective, Eddie, Alex, and Michael Anthony won by a landslide.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
It just comes down to a different singer. And as we were going through this, I'm just going to ask you this kind of philosophical question. Not even philosophical. It's more when you're listening to them. So Sammy has a better pure rock voice, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But do you think there are any songs on 5150 that you could hear Dave singing?
No, absolutely. The first one, good enough. I could hear David Roth. I think I said that earlier too. Here's the thing with the two, like, performers. David Lee Roth, by a landslide, takes the cake when it comes to the two frontmen. As a pure, like, I could see, like, David Lee Roth could do vaudeville. David Lee Roth could do like a song like Ice Cream Man. Sammy Hagar, that's not his style.
Right.
Sammy Hagar didn't touch a lot of Van Halen songs. I don't know if the band in general just didn't want to do that. I've heard Sammy Hagar live do Jump and Panama. That's it.
Is that it?
That's it. Yep. I never live me then in the 3 times that I saw them. Yeah, 3 times. I never, or 4 times. I never heard him do anything other than Jump and Panama. Those are the 2 songs where I could see like, but in terms of overall, like, but see, Sammy Hagar was a musician as well, a more accomplished musician than David Lee Roth. He was a solo artist before David Lee Roth became a solo artist. David Lee Roth was a fantastic solo artist, but he also had fantastic musicians. He had a great band.
Oh my gosh.
Where Sammy Hagar was part of his band. He wasn't the lead guitar player, but he could play lead guitar if needed. So, but yeah, I could definitely see more so David Lee Roth doing more of the Sammy Van Halen stuff than vice versa. But I would have loved to see the 2 of them together, like, tour with Van Halen back in their, let's say after For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. If they had toured together and did, like, the songs together, not all of them, but, like, kind of try to do some, or have Van Halen like a tag team. That would have been cool.
It would have been amazing.
I think the fans would have loved it. They would have gone absolutely crazy. I don't think it would have ever been possible, but I mean, I wish it could have, because I think it would have been amazing.
Sammy wanted it to happen. Sammy couldn't understand why it wouldn't happen, and that's where we'll do the episode on vocalists, because this comes up from time to time with other artists as well, as far as catalogs go. But I could definitely hear David Lee Roth singing Summer Nights.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And you leave the heavy lifting to Michael Anthony and you're golden. You can drop that in any register that works, and it would be phenomenal. So, Carlos, we have the first one in the books for the Record Rumble.
Like I said, neither one of them, like, 5150 is my favorite Sammy Hagar fronted Van Halen album. But neither one of those albums, 5150 or 1984, is my favorite Van Halen album. Like, my favorite Van Halen album is Fair Warning. I finally said it right. Where the first time I was on your podcast, I named the album Mean Streets. Sorry. That's the age.
I do it every episode. It's all right.
Fair Warning is my favorite Van Halen album. It was the first Van Halen album I ever heard. Because I heard it before 1984 came out at a friend's house. His older brother was a big Van Halen fan. But yeah, so that's my favorite Van Halen's album of all time. But 1984 and 5150 are 2 damn good Van Halen albums in my estimation, as you can see by how close we were with in terms of the voting. So this was awesome, man. I definitely look forward to hearing you do more of these with other people because I want to hear other people's perspectives also. But I'm also looking forward to being on again. If you do that, musicians or frontmen, different frontmen for the same group. That's very interesting. I mean, and
it's a great concept.
Yeah.
So major shout out. So Justin, hit me up on Facebook because there was a post that was from a recent article so even now, Joey Belladonna from Anthrax is back in the band. He has been for like almost 10 years now, I think.
Yeah, for a while,
and he still kind of feels, I don't know, he feels a certain way about the fact that he was let go from the band and brought up. So you get all these different dynamics, both musical, personal. It's very interesting concept. And Justin's like, hey, what about different lead singers for the same band? And I think it's a great concept, and we'll have to get that scheduled sometime soon.
Definitely. Love to hear Justin's take on the Black Flag situation.
He might be going in a different direction with some of those, and I can think of two in particular that he might be very, very interested in. And it also gets back into people's narrow perspectives of what makes a band. I have just conceded the fact that I was one of those people. Yet one of my favorite all-time bands ever became my favorite band because of a change in lead singer. So that'll be something that we'll definitely talk about. So Carlos, I'm going to ask you to stick around in just a minute. But at this point, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for listening. Please reach out to me on Facebook at the Stuck in the Middle podcast. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at StuckPodX. You can email me at stuckinthemiddlepod@yahoo.com. And by all means, I would ask you to please leave 5-star reviews, like, comment, and most importantly, please subscribe to the podcast. So, until next time, later, slackers.